Hello and welcome to the i3 lecture series hosted by the Masters in Digital Photography here at the School of Visual Arts. I am Julie Grahame. Our guest tonight is self-taught, Swiss-born, fine art and editorial photographer Henry Leutwyler. After being rejected by one of Switzerland's leading photography schools, he opened his own photo studio in Lausanne, photographing stereotypical Swiss things like cheese, chocolate and watches. Henry eventually moved to Paris and then on to New York, where he seems to almost be never home. Henry's editorial clients include National Geographic, Condé Nast Traveller, Architectural Digest, Vogue, Vanity Fair, Teen Vogue, GQ Style, the New York Times Magazine, New York Magazine, The New Yorker, just to name a few. He's published more than 20 books, most recently Birkenstock, Walk This Way.
And they don't,
You're not, are you?
They don't even give me
God,
free shoes. Terrible.
Which is produced, as most of his previous books have been, by the mighty Steidl. With fine artwork in multiple exhibitions and festivals extending from his home country to China and Japan, please hold tight while Henry takes us on his journey.
Thank you all for being here. If you came to learn something about photography, you won't learn anything. But most likely you will know who I am. Julie said most of the important stuff already. And I was given an hour, so I found an hour, and I don't like to stand behind a podium. I don't like to have a microphone on a podium, and I don't like anyone telling me I have only an hour. So my friends know I'm a talker, so I found a way not to talk and to have little notes. So, but it's true, imagine 45 years in 60 minutes. That's a minute and a half and you can't even finish it, So I'm not going to tell you like every other photographer, we all had cameras as children. And I do come from a family of printers. My grandfather and father were both printers. I didn't want to become a printer. This could have been my business card. It was my father's. So it gets worse. The beginnings were rough. I didn't get into photography school not once, but twice. The second letter, I threw it in the garbage, but I still have the first one. It does actually say 1981. Out of spite, I opened a studio, exactly, and it didn't work out. The mother of my children helped me correct my bad English, and I wrote, I went bankrupt. She said, you can't say that. So it didn't work out. And I moved to Paris. And I had the best 2 years of my life being an assistant. I traveled around the world. And yes, at one point in my life, I was skinny with hair. Some of the fun times with Uma Thurman and Stephanie Seymour, the people who are in this industry, in the fashion, they know who these people are. I quit in April '87, went back to Paris. I technically lived in New York and Paris, but mostly in New York. 1987 was a difficult year for me. My first cover came out, and my father died the day my first cover came out. So unfortunately, from here onwards, I hope he sees it. And a little bit like every other photographer, we all wanted to become fashion photographers, but I wasn't that good. So I moved on to portraits. I'm looking at my watch, Every portrait has a story. Every photograph has a story. I'm going to try and go really quick through this. I'm at slide 18 out of 212. No. And so to give you a little bit of time to ask me questions, if you want to learn something about photography. No, I'm really happy because thank you, Damien, who used to work with Avdon before working with me, and he just flew in for the lecture. Thank you, Robbie, my last and former agent who still doesn't want to represent me. But then there's a few good friends who keep on coming to lectures, and they know the story, so it's kind of, you know. The reality is, since I was a kid, I always liked every form of dance. I made a minor career out of photographing dancers and bodies, dressed and less dressed. But we are in a puritanical society, so the naked pictures are small. 1988, I insisted on trying to go to the Olympic Games in Seoul. Love Korea. The only problem with these pictures, nobody ever wanted to publish them. So, and I'm not a sports photographer, so I took the bed sheets of my room and I made a studio outside, you know. What you don't see here is that to be a sports photographer is like going to war. And I have never been at war, and I realized that whenever I went on the track, there were always 200 photographers with big lenses in front of me, and I had a Hasselblad with an 80mm, which didn't cut it, you know. And I'm not a tech guy, so I don't know how to use fancy cameras to this day. And only once, I was the only guy at one distinctive moment, which was the 100-meter men, but I was at the starting blocks. And it did, and I think I got the heel of one person. So this is what I got, you know. And then I was thinking, this is not good enough. I have to find a way to bring back home something good. And I started looking. For me, she was the most interesting athlete at the Olympic Games. It was Flojo. So I tracked Flojo down in Seoul, everywhere. And I did find her, and it's a long story, but at the end we did the pictures in New York, and other than Annie, who was commissioned by Vanity Fair, I was the only photographer, probably to this day, who has these images. Al Joyner, it's a shame she died way too early, but to this day she holds the world record of 100-meter woman. And again, my life and my career has always been kind of out of spite. So when Paris no longer worked out, you know, I said, okay, you know, I spoke to my wife and I said, what shall we do now? You know, she said, well, let's go to New York. So she came a few months earlier, 7 months pregnant, and I arrived, I think, December 23rd, 1995. And the funny story is that for you, or for the ones who worked for the New York Times in the 90s, there was one magic number in New York, and it was a number that was 111, 1111, 111. That was the New York Times phone number. And one day that thing pops up on my mobile phone, and I was like, huh, maybe it's advertising, maybe, you know, whatever. And the mother of my children, without telling me, had dropped my portfolio off at the New York Times. So they gave me a job, and I was like, how did you find me? You know, I just came off the boat, actually off the plane. But the New York Times was good to me, and it's still to this day. And after the Times publications, the phone started ringing. And this is just a few of it, thousands and thousands of test sheets over the years. I am a magazine photographer. I will die as a magazine photographer. I don't want to hear that the magazines are dying. I'm, you know, don't forget, I'm a son of and grandson of printers. I love books. I love paper. I don't want to look at the magazine on my iPhone. And back in the day, and some of these things are old. I mean, really old. But back in the day, I always assumed a real photographer needs to have 5 covers. Time, Newsweek, Fortune, and Life. I mean, this is what back in the day, you know, then you can say, okay, you know, it's not bad. But one was missing. And it's a long story again. I'm not going to go into the detail, except that I thought, you know what? I need to go and meet with National Geographic. I mean, the worst case scenario, it's like, hi, bye. And so I had an appointment with Sarah Lean, and I never went to the appointment, but also never told anyone. I didn't show up. Like 2 weeks later, I got a little bit ashamed, so I picked up the phone, I called, I said, listen, Sarah, I'm really sorry, but let's reschedule. And she said, fine. I didn't show up. No, but I was scared because National Geographic, to me, to this day, is National Geographic. The third time I went, and you present, I remember presenting to 25 editors. And usually the kiss of death is, thank you very much, we call you if something appropriate shows up. And you're like, okay, let me go, bye. And a few days later, I get an email, and the subject of the email said, man, I have something for you, and then call me. I didn't call back. She sent me another email and said, you didn't get my first email? Then I kind of called back because I didn't want to have a little picture, next to the horoscope, if there is such a thing in National Geographic. Probably not, But so this was my first job for National Geographic. And the beautiful thing with National Geographic is that you don't have one cover, you have like, I don't know, how many? 3 times 12 covers. And it goes on and on and on. That's what they say. They also say the streets are paved in gold, which after 30 years, they're actually not. Or at least if you know where they are, please tell me. This was my first, it's organized in the Swiss-Italian way, not really in chronological order. So this was my first picture I did in New York. I wanted to do a story on the construction workers. I started it and never finished it, but some of the pictures are not that bad. My first portfolio for the New York Times Magazine, it was called Give Me the Damn Ball. And there were 2 teams, women's football teams, and we did one team on Monday night, one team on Tuesday, and we drove into different states. And this is all outside. So basically, a portable studio, you can see the floor. And they would basically break bones for $100. They were complaining, the guys are getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and we get $100 to break bones. Some of the portraits I like, Toni Morrison is definitely one of my favorite writer and portrait. She came to my studio, it took maybe 30 seconds to do this, but we spoke for 2 hours. I'm not going to say who is who, but I'm going to say that this is one of my best friends, whoever likes jazz, Keith Jarrett. I'm one of the only photographers he tolerates to this day after 2 strokes around him. And actually Damien, raise your hand, he did this picture of me, remember? Yeah. And 8 by 10 out of, so I didn't do this one. It apparently just won number 8 of the 25 most important covers ever published. So I'm happy that I'm number 8. I prefer number 7, but number 8, So I did a lot of work for the New York Times Magazine, and one day I get the call from Kathy Ryan, and she says, would you like to do the food picture, talking about the horoscope, the last one at the end? And I said, sure. I photographed food when I started. There was nothing else to do, food watches, chocolate, cheese. And I think that over time, I also became a stylist. Please, my signature, over time, I don't like to work with a stylist. I do it on my own. And the food editor of the New York Times, Ruth Reichel, left to become editor-in-chief of Gourmet magazine in the 2000s. And Gourmet had always a plate, a dish on the cover. And she said, Henry, would you like to do a cover try for us? I want to move away, and every October issue should have a famous chef on it. And I told her I would love to do it, but only if I can talk to him first. And she said, why? I said, because I'm just interested to know who I'm going to photograph for your first cover. And the conversation was, what do you think about women who don't like to eat? So we went on for 2 hours, and we agreed on a lot of things. And at the end, he got the cover, and so did I. And a few months later, he said, oh, you know, I got a huge book deal with, I believe it was Hyperion. Would you like to do the book? And I said, absolutely not, because I know how difficult it is to photograph food. And in July, you know, following year, I said, so how are things going? And he said, well, I was waiting for you to ask me and eventually change your mind. So I did change my mind. I think I never lost the weight of the good food. So I have China is delicious food. I've been there 5 times in the past year. And the white chocolate risotto that Rocco did, I messed up 4 times the recipe to be able to eat it over and over again. And we won a James Beard Award for Best Cookbook back in the day. Tools of the trade. And again, no stylist, no models. It was Rocco and myself, and we had a lot of fun. And I assure you, there's no Photoshop. 2 seconds, I mean, a fraction of a second later, the sous chef got slammed with the fish. Late nights after service is over. Chocolate Lucy, she was the pastry chef. We had this genius idea, you know, and she did it. And in 2005, a project with the Presley family, how to make a portrait of somebody who's dead, right? Well, like this. I told you wouldn't learn anything. And subsequently, when the world went to shit, sorry, thank God nobody's beeping, I decided to become my own client, which was the best decision I ever made, because I do believe that you're not a photographer when you don't take pictures for yourself, and you should take pictures above and beyond editorial clients, advertising clients, or whatever. You're a photographer every day with your iPhone. And I happened to come along, I call this the day music died. This is the gun that killed John Lennon. And I will talk about this a little bit later, because now I'm at slide 67 and there's like 212 left. I started making a list of my heroes. Most of them were dead, because I was a kid in Switzerland, Hendrix, Joplin, you know, I would have wanted to photograph them, Muhammad Ali, and I started going on a quest to do portraits of them through their belongings. Robbie got a call, my lovely agent, please Robbie, take me back. And he didn't even blink. Got a phone call from the New York City Ballet, and said, I got a call and they want to meet you, would you like to go? And I said, of course. And this became a long-standing love affair and relationship, years of advertising campaigns, subsequently editorials. Every time there was something important, I would do it. And at some point, I've done it all, and I said, well, I want to go backstage and work backstage. And other than Martha Swope, nobody got access. Even the photographer who is under contract at the New York Times can only do front of the house. That was Vanity Fair, actually. And then I thought, that's why I said it's half Italian, half Swiss. It's very unorganized. And my thoughts, I was hoping somebody would bring me a little bit of something to drink other than water, but you know, what can I say? So the mother of my children always carried me our entire life in New York and made me look good. Kathy Ryan was very instrumental in my career at the New York Times, and all the editors that came out of her school, Jodie Kwon and so on, and Gerhard Steidl. So I thought, you know, for you who love photography, maybe you want to hear a few things about Gerhard. I did so far 12 books with him. It started in 2010. Thanks to a friend, colleague of mine called Robert Polidori, who made the phone call that I wasn't able to make. And I started going twice, 3 times, 4 times a year to do books. This is how Gerhard's office looks. No wonder he doesn't call back in a timely manner, because you know, he can't find your phone number. And I don't know if it's always exhausting to fly to Gerhard, because he tells you the night before, come now. And obviously you have other things to do, but if you miss your turn, you go on the bottom of the pile and you have to wait another 2 years. So I'm back. And you have to understand, for me, as the son of a printer, to be in a printing company next to the rumbling machines and the paper and the smell of ink is reminding me when I was a kid. And I adore the man. We get along. I'm difficult, he's difficult. This is when the first book was in the truck, and it literally changed my life, because a magazine photographer, even though I don't like editorial and commercial photographer, why can't we just say photographer? But anyway, I don't like categories, but it is true, a magazine photographer or a commercial photographer doesn't have access to the art world. You start as an artist, you die as an artist, you start as a magazine photographer, you die regardless. Gerhard made that difference. When I started publishing books with him, things started moving around. Sold out immediately, and I got my first show at M&B in Los Angeles in 2010. The book released in September, June 10. The book released in April. In June I was in LA, first show ever. It was fantastic. A few among Billy was there. You were there, Billy. Well, and then I have a funny story. So I have a very good friend that you should invite absolutely to a lecture. His name is Bart Michiels. He's Flemish, extraordinary photographer. And he had a show at Michael Foley's gallery. And I went for the pizza afterward, because usually I know Bart's pictures, so pizza was good, pizza and beer. And then at some point I leave the pizza party, and then this guy coming over and says, are you Henry Leutwyler? I said, yes. I love your Michael Jackson book. I said, thank you. And I leave, and a week later he sends me an email saying, I would love to meet you and talk to you about a show. And I swear on my children, which I should not, one of them is here. The other one is sulking. I forgot to get back to him. I never got back to him. A year later, actually, a year later, I said, I'm really sorry, I forgot to get back to you. It still happens today that I don't get back to people. And I did my first show in New York. He was my gallerist until he closed the gallery in 2024. I had 4 shows with him. I love Michael, and there's a little show coming up at the Leica Gallery in February which most likely I shouldn't say or talk about, but he's not here today. He went to Leica in Germany, so I can. Ballet came along, again, in Germany. I was calculating that I have been probably over a year and a half etched idle day-wise. I know the shop in and out, every street, every restaurant, also sold out. And that was a very interesting story. We were printing the book, so it was 5,000 copies, the first edition. The second edition was different. The first edition, while we were printing, the book was sold out. It was unbelievable. Gerhard came with a bottle of champagne. He's not that kind of guy, by the way. And he said, I was like, we won the lottery. He said, the book is sold out. A lot of shows around the world with this project. I miss working for the New York City Ballet, but I had said a long time ago, the day Peter Martin leaves, I will no longer work with you guys. And he left. And I had a few talks that were so this little guy over there, I'm sitting next to Wendy Whalen, who of course is used to be in front of 2,000 people, but I'm not. And so I found this, I said, Wendy, would you like a glass of wine? She said, yes. So I went to get 2 glasses of wine. I put one for her, one for me. I looked at the crowd. I drank my glass immediately. And then she wouldn't touch hers. So after 1 minute, I took hers, drank it, and put it back. So this is how this is how it's done. Another ballet show at Michael Foley. I didn't want to put all of it, but I had a lot of shows in Asia, in Japan, in Switzerland, where I was literally unknown for 2/3 of my photographic career. We are getting to document, I told you, 12 years in the making, and Gerhard to this day corrects the proofs, corrects everything, listens, and makes the best book he can. And again, I saw him the other day. May he have eternal life, because nobody will ever be able to replace this man. So The Gun That Killed John Lennon, John Lennon's glasses, James Gandolfidi's Cadillac, Bob Marley's Tam, his guitar, Back to the Future. And you know, one thing always leads to another. I learned to say no often, but by saying no, you cut yourself off eventual opportunities, and sometimes they're really good. People say, well, do you make any money with books? I said, not really, I actually spend money. But the third show at Michael Foley, and the lady next to him reached out to me once and said, you should have a show in Switzerland. And I answered like a dummy, oh, you should come to New York, I have one in New York. She happened to be, back then, she was the director of the Fine Arts Museum in Le Locle, and she's now the director of the Musée de l'Élysée, which is the photography museum in Switzerland. And I got my first museum show by making a stupid joke. Why don't you come to New York to look at my show, you know? So this is, I always want to have a museum poster in, you know, Swiss poster size. So I got it. It was big. It was very big. In 2017, I decided to close my studio. I think 2017 was the best year and the worst year of my life. But I felt like traveling more, doing more personal work, and getting it published. Because I realized, and that's 2017, I mean, 9 years ago, or 8 years ago, books brought me more joy than anything else. Advertising, magazines, money, books, I love making books. So this is the day I closed my studio, and my son took that picture. I just closed the studio, put the keys under the door, and never looked back. But I put everything in storage, so that's part of the archive. And you know, when you have to move this, you have no more friends. They just disappear. They all have backache or on holiday. more about Steidl. He loves yellow tape. You will, if you pay attention, there's yellow tape everywhere. And the good thing is when you do get into Steidl, one of my books is at the entrance, so I was very proud. You know, Karl Lagerfeld was always present. He always has an apple and tea and flowers on the dining table. And I love photographing it in variations of seasonally flowers. He did something incredible, Steidl. He has a little hotel. I mean, he bought a house, made a little hotel out of it. There's 5 bedrooms and usually 5 photographers in the house. It's called the Halftone Hotel, and it's by appointment only, so you know, people want to book the hotel can't get in. And look, if you pay my Birkenstocks, that was before I worked for them. I did every single room in that building, and unfortunately, when photographers passed away, he changes the name. So there was a Lagerfeld suite, it's no longer there. There was a Günter Grass suite. Günter Grass died, so you know, it's and other people replace. So 2020, COVID, the world went to the word that we can't say again. During that time, I did 3 books, even 4 maybe. So work in progress. I found the pocket address book of Frank Sinatra and decided to photograph every single page. And an editor actually, let me just read because this is really funny, I had to write it down. An editor, Bill Shapiro, wrote an article in Esquire about this book. And he said, I think it's quite funny. Over the past 15 years, Leutwyler has developed a bit of a preoccupation with tracking down and photographing objects that once belonged to cultural icons. John Lennon's specs, Gandhi's sandal, Elvis's TV remote control. But this, his most far-reaching and subtle exploration, 69 pictures of a single object. So I photographed, you know, and Steidl is crazy enough to publish such nonsense, and it's out of print. So I mean, you know, so yeah, that's kind of it. And I photographed even the empty pages because you can see through. It's interesting, you know. It's and during COVID, same. I got a phone call at 9 p.m. and I always pick up the phone. And there's a guy that says, I'm the creative director of Todd's. And I'm like, how did you find me? You know, it's like, I didn't even have an agent by then anymore, Robbie. And he said, and he, you know, we were video chatting. So he said, give me a second. He comes back and brings the document book and says, we want this. I said, cool. Took a car, went to Italy, shot in the factory, came back. And it is the kind of stuff I like to do. I like to rummage around. And it's just fun to rummage around. And I'm lucky, in addition to having Gerhard Steidl publish my stupid ideas, he also gives me projects once in a while, because he acts as an ad agency. I mean, for you who love books, Del Pire used to do it, other publishers do it. They take up clients and do projects. So one day, you know, usually saying, where are you? And I said, well, I'm in Switzerland. Come now. So I go, and says, you start working tomorrow. I said, okay, what am I doing? You're doing a book for this company, and so this is it. In the basement, nothing fancy. And 1 month later, the book is printed. And I love it because it's stuff that I would never have done. You know, it's just interesting. This was 742. This was a very, very difficult project. I took this picture in 1992. This was a project commemorating the 20th anniversary of 9/11, also for National Geographic. And I had 2 assistants on this assignment, which was very long. As of day 2, the second assistant bailed. He couldn't do it. He said, I can't do it. Yeah. So I didn't give you again this 14 or 12 slide thing, but you know. And Michael Foley is fantastic because this was the 4th and last exhibit I did with Michael. You know, a gallerist needs to make money by selling prints, right? And I said, we are not selling prints. We're going to stay open 7 days a week. We're not closing 2 days. I will be there when you're not there, and we're going to open the doors for the people who want to come in. And I donated all the pictures to the 9/11 museum. Yeah. As you know, chocolate, cheese, and watches. This is watch book number 1. There's a few more coming. This is usually my setup. I also have a banana, but mine didn't fetch millions of dollars. But this is usually the setup. So you see the yellow tape. So I did a book with the Red Cross. I did a book on Misty Copeland. And I did a book on Philip Halsman. Philip Halsman was important to me because when I came to New York the first time in 1979, I discovered his work at ICP. And one day I went to a fundraiser, a Gordon Parks fundraiser, and you know, I don't have a lot of stuff to tell bankers. But next to me was a really funny woman. At some point he says, my father's print just sold. And Irene Halsman's daughter, and it took like 8 years before we managed to do this book, but we did it. Misty, 3 books at the same time in progress, and lunch in tête-à-tête with Gerhard, which is always very stressful. It really is. One of the rooms where that's the Joseph Beuys room, and it's really lovely. Halsman, I'm going to go quickly because it's just pictures in books. Halsman, 400 pages. Ballet was 400 pages. And Gerhard said to me, you did again a 400-page book? And he said, I wanted to cut half of it and nobody would have seen the difference, but I did not. Because this is a really good book, he said, so you should go and buy it. It's still available. And I don't make money on books. I have a very good deal with Gerhard. I always say, you know what, Gerhard, use the money you make either to reinvest on one of my future books or give it to a young photographer where you're going to sell 5 copies. Because you don't make money with books unless you're Obama. You make money with the prints you sell when you have shows. That's what I learned 15 years later, you know. And this project was done during lockdown, COVID in Switzerland. Museum was closed. I had full access of the archives, usually 1 week to understand what we're talking about, and then 3 weeks of photography. Long days, but fun days. And because I'm a fool, you know, remember 2017 I closed the studio, so 2023 I reopened one. And I spent money to make it exactly the way I want it. And so I'm very happy in it. It's 4 times bigger than my apartment. So I spend more time in my studio than in my apartment. Another project of Gerhard, another book project, Come Now. So Come Now did the book. And I just enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I just open drawers and I go pick up stuff and I photograph it, and there's no editor, there's no stylist, nobody says sign a release. You don't have marketing people telling you, I think you should move the camera a little bit higher. You know, that kind of stuff. But you know what I'm talking about. Misty is a very fun story. You can ask me questions at the end. We are friends for probably 15 years now. This book is also sold out. I will spend the last day of her professional ballet career with her on October 22nd. I'm very much looking forward to it. And what allows me to be traveling a lot and making books, because it still requires you making money, and it's certainly not what magazines pay that would allow me to do it, is advertising. I try and do little of it, but good one. And so far I've been lucky. I did 4 campaigns with Issey Miyake so far. There's a project coming up soon. Another one. A beautiful book on the story of Tiffany. You may have seen these maybe out and about. Thank you, Ruben, for supporting me, always. And that's when it gets big. It's an iPhone picture, so it's not very good, but you get the idea. The 10-year anniversary for Plissé Homme, subsequently a show in Tokyo. And again, I think you see the playfulness of, or the rigidity of the Swiss still life photographer fiddling with this kind of stuff, but I like it. And when you go to Steidl, I mean, not all the books, but when I go to Steidl, you always have to work on site and lay it out, and you have to sell it to him. And that's why you saw Hi There and this and other books where you cutting and pasting. I don't know how to use a computer anyway, so cutting and pasting is just fine. Watch book number 2. And I come back to my father, because I haven't processed this 40 years later, almost. Yeah, 40 years later. I had probably 20 or 30 shows so far, but this was 11,000 square feet in China. And I wished he could have been here and see it. I was wondering, what the hell am I going to put into 11,000 square feet? But we filled it, and it was fun, and I'm going back to open another show on October 30th. And this is the first time I show my portrait work. So this was Paris, or some of Paris, and this was some of New York. And ask me why I've never shown my portrait work. I will answer. If not, it will be an unanswered reality. And I'm almost getting to the end. This is what's in progress. These are the books that are being worked on. 4 of them are shot. Camera Museum is the history of photography. The 200 years come up next year. Helmut Newton by Henry Leutwyler is done. Henry by Henry is done. Oscar Peterson is done. And Rolex is done. 7074 is done. And Steidl by Henry is in progress. Let's pray, please, for Gerhard that he lives forever. And then one last thing, because I think I survived as a startup failure multiple times due to my Italian mother, who taught me to have, and so please, in my career, 90% of the people always said no. So never fear rejection, and you're going to get things done. Thank you.
great seeing you again. Your life without style, how would that look like?
Very boring and no schnitzel. But I wasn't kidding, not about the schnitzel. He really changed my life. Without him, I would probably still be a magazine photographer, getting advertising once in a while and going on holiday because I like it. And that's about it. Probably no gallery shows, no museum shows, no print sales, except maybe my neighbor would buy a flower, which I don't photograph. So Steidl did do something I never expected. He changed my life for the better. Nah, nobody does. But I was lucky. And I have a few good friends. And Robert Polidori is one of them.
Wait, next. Don't be shy.
No, because I should be the one. You know, photographers have that privilege to hide behind the camera and, you know, in the dark.
Hi, Henry. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience. My question is, when you were photographing all these belongings from like famous people, how did you get access to them?
Nagging. Now, a lot of time making calls. Emails don't work. Nobody responds to emails. I mean, nobody communicates anymore. Actually, we communicate on Instagram. That actually kind of works. Nobody leaves text message. I mean, no text message, no email, no voicemail, nothing. DM, phone calls, 100 phone calls. And then I tell you a funny story. One of my heroes, of course, is Audrey Hepburn. And she has 2 children. One lives in LA. He's very difficult. So I picked the one who lives in Rome. And I said I would like to photograph something of your mom, but not the black turtleneck and not the pearls, you know. And he said, come anytime and we have everything and it's easy. And I said, great. So I was on one of those tours where I was doing multiple locations to do this 12-year project. And I arrive in Rome from Paris, one go. Actually, no, Rome, Perpignan, Paris, Perpignan, Rome. I arrive in Rome. And he lives in the house of his mother, beautiful little house with the garden and everything. And he says, I have good news and bad news. I said, well, start with the good news. I have a fabulous reservation in a little restaurant next door. The belongings of my mother haven't come back from the Seoul show, so I have nothing. But, you know, pasta, 2 bottles of red wine, tiramisu, and then he starts saying, you know, my mother was a really good cook. And I always wrote, I mean, she always wrote the recipes down with her typewriter, her Olivetti typewriter, you know, and the red Olivetti typewriter. And he's an art director. I said, where is the typewriter? In my office. That was the picture. So again, out of a bad situation, there's always a good one. You just have to be open and put the dumb smile on and say, ah, great, let's go have dinner, you know. And the worst thing is that I paid for dinner, you know. So.
Thank you. Yep, pass it to your neighbor. Thank you.
Hi, I could have. I wish you had more hours too, because I could listen to you all night.
You can invite me again.
Exactly. But I'm going to ask the question: why did you never show your portraiture?
I know. So, you know, some of us have this thing that commercial work belongs in magazines, and I'm a magazine photographer, and I never did personal portraits. I always did portraits on assignment, and I always thought I'm not going to make a book. Self-promotion, sharper, blunt observations, evidence, God knows how, you know, moments preserved of my portrait work, because my portrait is only as good as the next one who is better. So I'm not going to do it. And so 30 years later, 40 years later, I convinced myself that I could. and it was a retrospective, kind of. So I did, let's do it, because I mean, what you put in 11,000 square feet, you know, little still lifes. Yeah, so we put big portraits. And people liked it. Something else, I realized, because I don't look at my past work. I look forward. What's done is done. I realized that my work in Paris, and Ruba always says that, to go back to how I photographed back in the day in Paris, because when I came to New York, my portrait work became too commercial. It is what it is. And I might, because I like to photograph people, I like people, and I might go back to trying to get magazine work as a portrait photographer, but I will revert back to the way it should be. Sit down and talk to me. And not you have 5 minutes, have 3 setups, and there's a publicist and 55 people that are useless. And there's no money for the photographer, but there's $5,000 in catering. So it's like, no, no, I'm done with that. So that's why I never showed it. I thought it's, maybe magazine work, or at least my magazine work, doesn't belong on the walls and not in a book.
You're wrong. Wow, you're wrong. Hands up, he's wrong.
Well, that's only 4 hands. See, I'm right.
That didn't go well. I'm actually really embarrassed. Yes.
Henry, could you talk about self-initiating your projects from closing your studio and also self-financing? Then the one other question is your technique on doing all these multiple objects, which obviously sometimes are very reflective. It seems like you've got it pretty much simplified down.
I mean, 3 friends of mine and 1 former assistant, 1 friend who helps me out, my current assistant. I'm the most technically ignorant person on earth. I hate equipment and stuff. So I just emulate the sun, 1 light. And I let the people talk or the objects talk. So this reminds me that 20 years ago, when PDN magazine existed, there was a column called Tech Talk. And I have this guy calling me up and says, "Oh, hi, Henry Leutwyler, I'm this guy from Tech Talk, and we would like to talk to you about technique. And can you make a little drawing and tell us and show us examples?" And I was like, oh God, this is not going to go well. And I said, "Are you sitting next to a window?" It was a beautiful day, you know, blue sky, sun, New York. And he says, "Yes, look out the window. How many sun?" And that was the end of the interview, because he put the phone down. He knew where I was going. And you know, editors like me because I'm cheap. 1 light, okay, backup, 2 lights, 2 packs, you know, a few cables. I spend time looking at the stuff and not thinking about technique. And one of the reasons I love Toni Morrison's portrait is because we spent 2 hours talking. And she opened up, and I mean, not that I can talk about literature with Toni Morrison or poetry, but we did talk a little bit. And that's what makes good pictures. And now we are in a world where fast cash, greed, ignorance, and I'm going to stop with only those 3, rule the world. And you know what? Bad photography. Mine included. Not just the ones of my colleagues, but just bad photography. You can't take a good portrait in 20 seconds unless you're Cartier-Bresson, Avdon, or Mr. Penn. And I'm sure that Billy, who worked with Mr. Penn, and Damien, who worked with Avdon, was it really 5 minutes? I don't think it was 5 minutes, was it? When Dick photographed someone, was it 5 minutes or was it 2 hours? I mean, or when Mr. Penn photographed someone, was it 5 minutes or was it a proper conversation in front of a cup of coffee? We're not giving that pleasure anymore. Hence, pictures are bad. Next question. I hope not too many editors are here tonight. They're never going to call me.
So as far as your heroes go, did you have any like fine artists that you
I consider Mr. Penn a fine artist.
The non-photographers.
Painters,
Painters,
but mainly, yeah, painters. But they always
Anyone particular? Or?
No. No. But to be fair, the influence of painters is greater than the influence of photographers. I spend more time in museums looking at paintings than in bookstores looking at my colleagues' work. I stopped looking at magazines. If somebody would tell me what's the last cover of XYZ, I have no idea, I don't care. I reached a happy point in my life where if you want to work with me, I hope you like what I do, because this is what I'm going to do for you. That's it. Influences are, at this point in my life, I'm turning 64, I don't want to be influenced. I want to keep what I like pure in my mind and heart and go from there.
Henry, if you could just go back to when you closed your studio and you self-initiated projects and financed them.
Let's put it that way. 2017 was the best year of my life, at least the beginning of it. Museum shows, gallery shows, print sales, advertising campaigns. I mean, I had plenty of money in the bank. I was happy. And I thought that I worked hard enough and I should do something else. And I've always been a traveler. So I wanted to travel. I wanted to soak in the things I haven't seen. And to this day, I haven't been in Nepal, I haven't been in Vietnam, I haven't been in a lot of places, and I don't want to die dumber than I am today. So that was the first idea. I want to do this. And I always initiated projects. 90% of them, you're never going to see them because I never finished them. And a few managed to be finished, and a few ended up in a book. And the others, they are sitting in yellow boxes in my studio now. I have hundreds of ideas every day, but I can't make them all. You're not convinced about my answer? No, I see it. Me neither. But it's about being playful. It's about having fun. And I think New York, after 30 years or 24 years, 27 years, is tough. I needed out. Self-preservation, creativity. I spend a lot of time in Japan, country I adore. And I'm back, and I'm happy to be back, even though it's debatable on certain levels. But sometimes you just need time off. And when you take time off, then you come up with a few dumb ideas, and you have the money, and you do it. And then you run out of ideas, and you hope that Balenciaga or Tiffany or Tod's or Issey Miyake is going to call me back. And if you have any friends, please tell them to call me.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming. I'm one of the students in the Masters of Digital Photography program. So when you were mentioning about the technical aspect, how that's not really your cup of tea necessarily, but you also mentioned your father being a printer. One of the courses that we're taking is like color output and management. Mm-hmm. And I was curious, like your father's influence and being around that, how much of that influences your work, and how involved are you in the process of the printing and reviewing the prints?
So I probably have over 10,000 books to start with. No more friends when I move. Nobody wants to carry boxes. I'm at Steidl on pre-press on every book except one. I'm on press on every single book. I correct every proof, and I have an in-house retouching team, and we retouch. So it's my studio is a very small family of people that I have been working with for decades. And that's how I control it. you know, from when my father was alive, how he printed and how we print today has changed. Photoshop didn't exist. The whole industry has changed. So I just have a romantic vision and love of the days as a kid running around the print shop. I didn't learn anything because I didn't know I was becoming a photographer, and I didn't even know I would buy a book. I was just a kiddo, you know. And again, the person who taught me the most is definitely the mother of my children, who's a graphic designer, an excellent one, and Steidl. And then it's try and error in the studio. You think that that file looks great, and then you realize that it looks terrible. And you start over. But so far the books are well printed, and 80% of the quality of these books is definitely Gerhard Steidl with his magic and knowledge, not me in my studio. I just deliver a picture, it's retouched, we try and do the best we can, and we move on. My pleasure.
Anyone else? We have a few more minutes. Henry will be mad.
There's a still life photographer I love here. One of the best. I love your work.
Thank you, likewise.
Ask me something.
I have a question.
1 second, please. I need the mic. For our recording. It's too late now, boss.
Be nice.
All right. I've been asked to say my name. It's Stephen Lewis, and I'm a big fan of Henry's. And I guess I've noticed there's a remarkable consistency to everything about your work. There's like a energy and a graphic power that seems to, and it's not repetitive, but it's always there. There's like a Henry look. It's there, and there's like bold, graphic. And I remember when I was in Geneva, and the posters up of your
On the
Red
lake,
Cross.
yeah.
I mean, everything you do has that. Can you talk about, like, is there?
Maybe I just know how to do one thing, you know.
But it doesn't do that. It
I don't-
evolves and it
you know, for me, again, yes, still life photography in the beginning, but not having studied still life, it was trial and error, and then portraits, and then still life again. And for me, the still lifes and the portraits are the same. They're lit the same. The technique is the same. Everything is the same. I really honestly think I don't know how to do it better or different. And I found something that I really like. And it is so simple that people don't bother copying it, I guess. It really is. I mean, help me out, Ryan. We did 3 full book projects together. By now he hates me because we listen to the same music on every single book project, you know. But it's one light. It's one light.
and graphically too, though.
Yeah, but that's the Swiss side.
That's
You know,
probably what it is.
We're a bit square,
That's what it is.
you know.
It's the Swiss.
That's why Hasselblad was a really good format for me. But, you know, now these days are over.
Well, congratulations on all the success, Henry's.
Thank
Fantastic.
you. Thank you
It's
for
fantastic.
coming, and I am a big fan of your work.
Okay, one more. Anyone? Sorry about that.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for coming too.
I wanted to ask more. Yeah, funny. I do have to be here. I am a grad student as well. But I wanted to ask more about your earlier career. Actually.
When I failed, or
Yes, actually.
Ah, okay.
I wanted to ask about this because it's funny to look back in a storied career of 45 years and laugh about
it wasn't funny.
At the time,
No,
I'm sure it
it
wasn't.
wasn't funny.
But I wanted to ask more about how you were feeling around that time, because it's not getting into school twice and it's going bankrupt. What made you want to keep going? What is that
I'm
about?
stubborn. No, I mean, ask some of my friends and family are here. I really don't know how to do anything else. So what are the choices? That was it. And I really love photography. I mean, the privilege of learning what you're learning in school is fantastic. I didn't have that privilege, so it took me a little bit longer to figure things out. But I just like to wake up in the morning, and I have hundreds of pictures of myself from age 6 to today. I was always with the camera around my neck. Now I have this, it's in my pocket. But you know, it's not bad. I didn't know how to do anything else. You know, I think when you like food and you know how to cook, you cook every day, and you cook for yourself because you need to eat well, and out of self-respect, you should, even if you live alone, you should cook a good meal, and you should cook for your friends and enjoy that time together. And that's what I did with my photography, you know. I mean, still life is a great therapy because I'm alone or with one assistant, compared to 100 people on set with New York City Ballet, if not more, 100 people on set with National Geographic, if not more. It's a good balance, and I needed it. You know, it was my drug. I don't take drugs. I drink a little bit once in a while, but photography is my drug. I need it. Give me anything with a button, and I'll do something with it, you know, all around the world. And if I could, I would actually travel all year long, because that's what I really like. And I'll get there to be able to be on assignment and just traveling one day. Because it's probably no longer sustainable to have a studio in New York and keep on going the way I have been going. And I need a team to work with, because I don't know how to do it on my own. As dumb as it sounds, you know, you guys know how to retouch and plug the camera into the computer. I don't. And actually, I don't want to learn, because if you go back in time, to be a printer was a real job. There's a few photographers that were master printers, but most of them didn't know how to process a film to save their life. I just know how to photograph. I had a little lab in my parents' basement. The prints were terrible. And probably if I would do it in Photoshop today, the retouching would be awful. I don't have the patience. I prefer 125th of a second. But let me try and answer a little bit further. Thank God it was difficult in the beginning, because it prepares you for what's to come. Because trust me, it won't be easy. So get ready. Damien, you want the mic?
Hi, Henry. I just want to congratulate you. Incredible body of work.
Thank you.
Just so beautiful. It just blows me away. It's amazing.
But?
But I want to say what really touched me in this. I mean, I love all your books, but really touched me because I have familiarity. I used to studied with Philly Paulsman for 2 years, and
Amazing.
Yvonne, and became friendship.
Oliver was supposed to come and he couldn't make it, you know.
Yeah. But what really touched me was that book at 400 pages of the Halsman book, and you know, what I wanted to ask you is like, what gravitated you to? I know him and I know his personality, but did it remind? Did he remind you of your father?
You know, I'm in a place in my life today where I'm going full circle on certain things. Halsman, first trip, 1979, New York. I visited the show in October, if I'm not mistaken, and he passed away in June or July. So I felt that I had to do it. You know, Oscar Peterson, book project, 100-year anniversary this year. We listened to my father listened to Oscar Peterson day in, day out. There was a Steinway at home and parties when I was a kid. I could never sleep. I had to do that project. 1992, I wrote a letter to Helmut Newton. I went to Monte Carlo. I did his portrait. And 33 years later, I do a book with the Helmut Newton Foundation. And the picture I took of him, a die cut, full size, is in the museum. So, you know, you reach a point in life where you need to finish certain things. And that's it, you know. While doing this, I met one of my photographic heroes in Germany. It's like, it's interesting. It's interesting. It's not, you know, I think of my father and my mother every day, you know. I mean, unfortunately, they're no longer here, and I have no siblings, no grandparents. I'm kind of screwed. Thank God I have a family still here in New York, a small one. But yeah, I'm trying to make peace with myself, catch up with my past, and live a happy life moving forward, and trying to have as much fun as I can. I like to help people. That's one of my bad traits. I spend more time helping people sometimes than dealing with other stuff. That's who I am. I thought you won't learn anything about photography, but you may figure out who I am after this conversation. A little bit. There's so much more to say. Damien. Damien, who flew for this lecture from where, Damien?
I came in from Maine.
You know, which I find really lovely.
Thank you, Henry. My name is Damien Mardell.
A fantastic photographer.
I had the privilege to work with Henry for many years. One thing that I wanted to mention, as you're sharing your legacy here, and we get to be a part of seeing this incredible body of work, I think it's really important to also state that you were a fantastic mentor and one of my greatest mentors in my life. And I've had some pretty incredible experiences in my career with people I've worked with, and you continue to be my mentor, and you know that's why one of the reasons I flew in tonight, because I wanted to make sure I was there for you.
Thank you, Damien.
And I think it's important that people know that it's not just about your body of work, but it's kind of adding to what you just said. You love to help people out, and you really are like a special human in that way, and the mentorship has meant so much to so many of us. My question, though, is really, I would love to ask you, you've done some incredible projects. You know, for example, the New York City Ballet is just one example. Is there any other projects that you have a dream to finish or want to do?
I want to travel. I would like to go to Iceland and photograph icebergs. It has been done, but I still want to do it. You know, I enjoy traveling. I enjoy discovering 8x10. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy meeting new people. I enjoy being shocked by something that I have never seen before. I'm becoming, in a way, less and less urban. I need to get my influence from somewhere else, not from New York, concrete, or Paris or London, which is technically where we used to work. You know, Milan, Paris, Tokyo, London. No, at the moment, I just want to finish the 6-7 books I have in progress. No, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. This is going to, probably I'm going to be in Germany at Steidl for 2-3 months next year. I signed an agreement with people in China for 8 shows to come. I'll be often in Asia. Actually, let me track back. There is one project. I actually forgot about it because I'm so upset. As you know, I mean, as you figure out maybe now, I do love Japan. I have been in Japan since I was a teenager. And in the past 10, 15 years, almost yearly, twice a year. And when the anniversary of the atomic bomb came up, which was this year. 2 years ago, I started approaching the Hiroshima Museum to do a book with them, but as a gift. So Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And regardless how much I know how the Japanese function, they stonewalled me. I mean, I was doing it for free. Steidl was doing it for free. And it didn't happen. So I'm not giving up. That would be the project that I really would like to do next. The funny thing is, and I think, you know, we still have a few minutes. The funny thing is, I came back to New York, not because I love New York. I came back to New York and reopened my studio because I was actually offered 2 jobs that fell apart and would have kept me going for 1 year plus. The anniversary of the United States, I think it's 250 years. Yes. 250 pictures of 250 objects for National Geographic, the entire magazine plus the cover. Everybody quit and everybody left. So I was the victim of that. And Esquire magazine had an anniversary and they wanted to do the same on a smaller scale, and then they hit the wall and there was no money. So I opened a studio, invested a lot of money, knocked everything down, rebuilt everything, and then I had no work. But that's life. The little story behind reopening the studio. What can I say?
Any final questions or comments? Yes.
Hi, how are you? My question was just, you mentioned Hiroshima. I was wondering, how would you going to approach that project?
I went to 4 meetings with the museum curators. I visited the archive, I visited the museum, and I would do the exact same concept and project than I did for the Red Cross Museum for Hiroshima, and deliver a book. That's it. And I was hoping to be able to do both at the same time. I have a project that 99.999% will happen with the Issey Miyake team in Japan. And while I'm there, Tokyo, Hiroshima, 3 weeks in Hiroshima, do the project, go back and come back to New York. It's very simple. If you are granted access without any barriers, I don't like people telling me no.
No, you're talking about objects that survived the bombing? Or?
Correct. I'm not interested in the stories of the surviving victims. I'm interested in telling the story through the objects, because I do believe that objects don't lie. People do. Even if you're the victim of, people still do. And I go further because I was in the fashion industry, because I did beauty campaigns, because I did portraits. What we photograph today is no longer the person you have in front of the camera. I'm not interested. Don't wear makeup if you want to have dinner with me. That's the idea. I'm not interested. So objects talk, objects don't lie. And if the picture is not good, it's not the fault of someone else, it's mine. It's always the fault of the photographer, but sometimes it's the hairdresser, sometimes it's the makeup artist, sometimes it's the stylist, sometimes it's the model, sometimes it's a publicist, and sometimes it's just everything goes to shit. It doesn't happen with still life. If it's not good, you go have a walk, you come back, you do it again. If it's not good, you do it the next day. Or you move to the next object. And so it's great therapy. And with the concept of saying I like to be useful and do useful things, it's more important to educate people on never doing it again, hence Hiroshima, than to go photograph some stupid thing for $500 and schlep 40 pounds of equipment. Even if I only use one light, you still schlep equipment. And being stuck in traffic and have to nag the accountant to please pay me after I did the job in March. By the way, I'm still owed money for March. And I just thought about it.
Well, let's hope that project comes to life.
I hope it will happen. I wrote the curators and the director of the museum on the day of the anniversary of the bomb. And I'm going to Japan. I will be in Tokyo on the 25th of October. Then I'm going to China, then I'm coming back to Japan, and I'm going to go again to Nag. I became such a good Naga, but it didn't work with the Japanese. They just didn't take the nagging.
All right, thank you.
One last question, someone. A student question, come on.
You've had quite a good showing from the students.
Yeah.
Any last comments? All right, she's going again, bless you.
This is maybe a bit sillier, but when you were showing the photos from the Olympics with the bed sheet, what were the athletes' reactions to that in terms of like being legitimate?
I think they thought I was nuts.
Yeah, like did you get any trouble? Like,
but I was just doing what I used to do back in the day, except I was doing it in a studio, and then I thought, well, you know, let's just use the sun, and I had two guys holding the bed sheets, and that did the trick, and I still love those pictures, and they're old now.
they didn't think like, oh, who is like?
No,
is,
you know,
is this person trustworthy? Like, is this for real?
No,
or?
they were busy trying to win gold, silver, and bronze. They didn't, you know. But the interesting part was sometimes I would photograph the same people in the morning and then in the evening. And sometimes they won, sometimes they lost. And that was interesting because you see it. So again, that's the part of my job I love.
Thank you.
Thank you.